welcome to episode number 97 of the KH-Vids Podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about something a little different, but with us, you have your usual hosts of myself, Misty.
And me, Libre GKD.
And me, Killaxon.
Yes, so like I said, our topic this week is going to be a little different. We're going to be talking about same-sex marriage being legalized in the US and kind of branching off from there. We don't usually do, like, political topics. Obviously, a lot of our topics intersect with politics and, like, political standings, but I don't think that we've had an episode just about politics.
Which is a shame, because this is the other highlight. I mean, this is the other, I guess, passion, I guess you can say.
I think that we all are very politically involved. It's just a fear, I guess, we have of alienating listeners by throwing that into every episode. But, like, honestly, if you're listening to this episode and you have a problem with same-sex marriage, then, like, how did you find this podcast and why are you still listening to it? Is my question. Just because, I mean, I don't think that I hide my weird socialist liberal
I don't think I do either.
Agendas. So, I mean, if you disagree with same-sex marriage, I mean, this is a discussion that I want to have. Unfortunately, we don't have a guest because of planning reasons, but, like, it is a discussion that, like, some people are still against same-sex marriage, and, like, I'm curious to hear why. So, like, if you are, maybe do listen to the episode and do talk to us and open up a discussion. I mean, it's very possible that I will not listen to you, but yeah.
That's not a way to start discussion. It's like, hey, start a discussion, but hey, I may not listen.
Well, there are other people that can reply. I'm not the only one.
Good point.
Yeah, so if you somehow missed the news, I don't think that anybody could have, but same-sex marriage was just legalized in the US last week. It was a Supreme Court decision. Of course, it was legal in, I think, like 30-something states before this, New York being one of them. Holler.
I'm still disappointed in California, because there was a brief moment of like 6 months in 2008 where it was legal, and then there was a constitutional amendment that was passed by the people, not our state legislator, but the people themselves, because we can do that won by like 51%, and then it became illegal until like 2013. It was like, well, there was that, like, brief, like, if you ever see those, you know, charts where they light up states, and as it was like California blinks on and off, which is really sad.
I doubt it's the only state to do that, though.
Yeah, I know. It's still disappointment, especially because I remember in 2008, because I was still in high school, that there was like students on campus that were supporting the ban. Mm-hmm. It was mostly because a lot of the Mormon church poured money into the campaign to support that ban, but it was always just like, oh, this is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's just weird because, like, when you think of liberal states, it's like New York, California.
Yeah, I mean, the California, I mean, it's weird. I mean, this is the same for New York and pretty much any state that's considered a liberal state, is like the coast of California is like liberal, and then when you go further inland, it's more conservative. So you have this weird thing of like half the state is liberal and half the state is conservative, but because of how much is actually liberal, like on the coastlines, that it's mostly leans that way.
New York is very strange because, you know, I live on Long Island, which is very weird. I live in one of the more conservative areas, so I mean we do still tend to go like overall blue for Long Island, but like then we have the city, of course, which is probably our liberal center, but upstate New York is like if you took like slices of the Midwest and just like threw them into the north, it's very, very weird.
Yeah, that's like some parts of California, except instead of parts of the Midwest, I guess parts of the Midwest if they were put into a desert. because like obviously there's Los Angeles, which is a liberal city, and then there's San Francisco, which that's arguably one of the most liberal cities in the US.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of weird when you look at how, I guess, demographics are kind of broken up.
Yeah, and of course demographically we can look at the map of the United States in regards to same-sex marriage rulings, because there is a notable piece of the US that was very much having it banned for a long time, and by that I mean the South, the Bible Belt, them in there, who I'm if you live in the South, like, I mean, good for you. Keep doing you. I know you didn't choose it, but I'm sorry. Because it's terrible. Yeah, so the Supreme Court made it countrywide last week. What was the case called? It was like Obergefell versus something, v something.
I only remember the Obergefell part.
Yeah. I mean, it's not terribly important, I guess.
Versus Hodges.
Okay, yeah. Maybe that will be one of those things that we just like remember for history, like Roe v. Wade. Although, to be honest, a lot of people don't know what Roe v. Wade is anyway, but
yeah, I mean,
it's just like same-sex marriage ruling. That's how everybody is like referring to it. So yeah, I think it was a 5-4 ruling. I believe all of the women on the Supreme Court were in the pro side, so good job for them.
The dissents were Thomas Clarence, Alito, Scalia, and was it Roberts? I think it was Roberts.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a 5-4 thing with.
Yeah, so Cal is Canadian, and I'm sure that we have many non-US listeners. So, like, just to explain a little bit about the problem with the Supreme Court is like the people that have the power to make things legal, like countrywide. You know, states have the ability to legalize things just within their state, but for a countrywide thing, it has to go to the Supreme Court.
The courts basically decide if a law is is constitutional or not constitutional.
Yeah, the problem is that a lot of people interpret the Constitution very differently because the Constitution doesn't specifically say like, oh yeah, gay people can get married. Yeah, totally, that's fine. So there's a lot of issue here with like how people interpret the Constitution, whether they're very strict about it, whether they're a little more free with it. And of course, you know, there's just the issue of political bias, you know, if somebody is conservative, if somebody is liberal, etc. The weird thing about the Supreme Court, or not the weird thing, but the terrible thing about the Supreme Court, is that you can serve on it for your entire life. You know, political terms are usually limited to like a couple years, depending on the position, but the Supreme Court, I'm pretty sure it's just till you kick.
Yeah, or you retire.
Or you retire, but but it is a lifelong thing, I guess. It's unlimited, limited by mortality. So it does tend to be very conservative, the Supreme Court, because we have a lot of older people on it, and, you know, older people just in general tend to vote conservatively, but that means that, you know, like, things that my generation believes in, it's not reflected in the Supreme Court because there is that huge generational gap. So this honestly came as a bit of a surprise, considering how conservative the Supreme Court usually is.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to that, though, for the longest time, the majority of people on the Supreme Court were conservative. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at, like, general of older people, they tend to lean conservative, but obviously there's always exceptions to that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But like I was actually having a discussion with this, and it's really it's the reason why right now we have a lot of older conservative people not right now, but like for the past few years before people like Sotomayor and Elena Kagan were put as chief justices, was that a lot of these justices were appointed during the Reagan era. And then later the George Bush, the father Bush, era. So it's just around this time where those people are either retiring or dying, that you're actually having a Democrat, a liberal, putting people on the court like Obama did with
Sotomayor
those two, Sotomayor and Kagan. So
yeah, I believe that Sotomayor is the youngest too. I think she's in her 50s. Yeah, which, I mean, that's still not very young. For U.S. politics, it's pretty young, but that's still, you know, she's not...
Yeah, it was the thing I was talking about, if, like, just out of one of those theoreticals, if Obama was never made president and if it was McCain...
this absolutely would not have happened. We would not be having this conversation today.
Not only that, because then obviously Sotomayor and Kagan wouldn't be the elected judges for him, but then you'd have people like Scalia and Clarence who would probably retire during his presidency, and then he'd nominate two other justices to that position,
who we could be stuck with for, 20, 30 years. And that's frightening. The Supreme Court is one of those things that I'm like, I still can't believe that we haven't changed this in the U.S. political system. But the Supreme Court ruling is a big deal for a lot of reasons, like not just because gay marriage is legalized now, but there's a lot more to it than, just like gay people being able to marry. And I have like weird opinions about marriage in general, but we do have to keep in mind that marriage isn't so much a religious thing anymore, that it is a legally recognized state that gives you a lot of benefits, like tax benefits and medical benefits and just a whole bunch of things. And so for this to be illegal, it's not just like, oh, we want to get married, we want to have a big party. It's not just that. And I think that a lot of people have a problem of kind of reducing it to that and not recognizing those larger effects. And that is why gay marriage is such a big deal, being banned from this. That, like, if you are with somebody and, like if two men are together and one of them is very ill and in the hospital, it's possible that their boyfriend cannot go see them in the hospital because of, hospital rules about family and visitation and etc. And that's frightening. That's really, really frightening if, like, your loved one is dying and you literally can't do anything about it because you can't be legally recognized just because of your situation, I guess. Not that being gay is like a situation. I can't think of a better way to phrase that.
I think people understand what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of things where if you aren't legally recognized as being married, then there's just a lot of stuff that you just can't do or is just not like recognized, and it's just kind of just a sad situation.
It is. It's really, really upsetting. It's so hard to, like, phrase this, like, to impress upon. I guess people probably understand what a big deal it is, though. I'm so stuck in that mindset of, like, again, I live in a pretty conservative area, so, like, I'm stuck in that mindset of, like, having people be like, oh, well, I don't agree with gay marriage, and I'm just like, what century is it? Like, I don't understand how people could not be in support of this. But again, like, I guess we are also appealing to a mostly younger generation, and polls for younger generations have been, like, substantially in favor of gay marriage. Like, it's rare that I find a younger person that is not in favor of gay marriage. Yeah. And I wonder so much about people's reasons for it. Like, I know it's a religious thing, but I'm just,
Yeah, I know, I understand where you're coming from. It's a weird thing to try and understand, because I want to try and understand, because I'd like to see how they're. It's just difficult to understand how people think in the first place. But it's you want to try to understand so you can hopefully try to explain and have them understand you, but that's sometimes not the easiest thing to do.
No, it's very hard for me to understand religion. Now, Cal, gay marriage has been legal in Canada, I think we said, for like 10 years. Has the social order exploded or burned to the ground in that time, in your experience?
I mean, I think we're doing pretty okay. Actually, looking on, Wikipedia is probably not my best source here, but Ontario actually legalized it in 2003, so we were the first ones. Yay! I guess at first it was by province, kind of like how you guys did by state, I guess, and then they just were kind of like, well, you other three homophobic provinces, we're just gonna put you in there too, and then they legalized it in all those provinces, and then the territories as well. I can kind of see why the territories didn't, though, because there aren't many people up there, and second, I think the culture up there is different. So there's that. But I'm like, Alberta, you're surrounded. What are you doing? Because it's stuck between like British Columbia, then Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg, and I'm just like, wait, Ontario, and I'm like, bro. Why are you doing this? And I don't know why it's so different, because we're right next door, so I don't understand. But I mean, the world hasn't exploded over here. Canada is still here, guys, so don't worry.
And probably my favorite one of my favorite reactions to come out of the announcement was a BuzzFeed article, which is rare that I say BuzzFeed article good, but a BuzzFeed article screen capping a bunch of like people posting on Twitter, and the people posting on Twitter were saying like, gay marriage is legal in the US now, like, time to move to Canada, I can't believe this, like disagreeing with gay marriage. And the BuzzFeed headline was just like, I've got some really bad news for you guys.
I saw that too, and I was laughing so hard because I saw all these people coming in on Twitter, and I was just like, ooh, what's going on? Because they're mentioning Canada, and I guess my Twitter just picked up on that, and I'm like, oh, guys, I'm so very sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing, I guess, some more worldwide reactions. Because a lot of people were talking about Canada, and then slowly the destination of choice became Australia, because...
Is gay marriage illegal in Australia?
It is not legal there.
Oh, wow.
And then you had some Australians, because of the ruling, some people in Australia have started to, rally to try and getting it legalized there as well.
Uh-huh.
And then you'd have people posting like, hey, if you want to adopt America's marriage laws, do you want to adopt their gun laws as well? Then it's just
so unreal.
Yeah.
I love that, like, in any political, like, decision or thing, people's knee-jerk reaction in America is to say, like, well, time to flee to Canada. And, like, I understand that if you are liberal and you're fleeing to Canada to get away from, like, another Bush being elected, which is frightening that it's, like, happening again. I'm having, like, flashbacks of, like, Clinton v. Bush. But
No, the thing I'm frightened about is that Donald Trump is pulling, like, right behind
oh
Bush.
My God. But, like, that people, like, I could see, like, myself saying, like, oh, I really should get serious about moving to Canada.
You can see yourself?
Yes, because my political views are conducive to that of Canada. But if you are, like, a gun-toting conservative Republican from the South, Canada is not the place for you. I don't think that they want you there. And
no, we really don't. Stay far away.
It's just, oh man.
I saw some other people saying that after, I guess, that they figured out that Canada wasn't an option, that they were going to move to Mexico. And I was just like, do you guys not read the paper or anything? Because I'm pretty sure that, Mexico legalized it as well.
Mexico's weird.
Mexico's... Yeah.
I'm not saying that to be disparaging. How they have it is that each individual states within Mexico actually recognize it, but it's like not quite legal yet. It's weird.
Well, that was similar to the U.S. until last week.
Yeah, I know. So it's not. It's in a weird situation of where it's
in the process. It's still not the place to flee to escape gay marriage.
Basically, there's
very few places left to flee to escape gay marriage, to be honest, which is great.
Yeah, most of the America, Canada,
the large populated countries are more and more coming
Germany
to their
isn't.
senses. Okay, well, I don't know that much about European politics. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at a list right now, and basically the big the big European countries that it is legal is basically Western Europe and the Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm.
Because France, Spain, UK, then Sweden, Norway, those places.
Kind of what you'd expect. Another reaction I want to talk about, though, is the people that were posting things like, this is great news and everything, but we still have so much to do, don't celebrate because, there's still so much progress to be made. And, of course, that is a point. That gay marriage being legalized does not suddenly mean that we live in an egalitarian society where you can be of any sexuality and be accepted. But the people celebrating the gay marriage announcement are primarily gay people and queer people, and they are very aware of the advancements that are left to be made and the progresses that are left to be made because they're living this every day. And that irritates me, those people posting those things, because we are aware, that there is a lot left to do. But, this is a big victory still, and it's one that should absolutely be celebrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I know they have a point with, saying, hey, it's just because this is done, that doesn't mean there's nothing else to do. But it is also kind of it seems it does irritate me just a little bit, because they're saying people shouldn't be happy or excited about the decision, and that's kind of well, that's you probably
people worked hard to get this done. Yeah. This is a big deal. This is a really big deal, especially to the people that can now get married. It's a really big deal to them. So I mean, I know that those people mean well.
Yeah.
Saying that, we still have to recognize the state of trans rights in this country, which are abysmal, and that, gay people are still socially looked down upon in a lot of areas, that, like, of course there's plenty left to do, but we are all too aware of that when you are living and seeing that injustice every day. We're aware, you know? So I wanted to nitpick that in case, like, and again, you know, these people do mean well. They're trying to just include all of those rights and recognize the battle that's left to be fought, but we can celebrate these little victories. And this is not just a little victory either. This is a big, big, big thing. And it sets this really nice precedent that no longer can people, like, point to the law and have it defend their bigotry. That, like, if you're living in a conservative household and you're gay and your parents are saying, like, well, you know, the Supreme Court says it's illegal, so, you know, gay marriage is wrong. There are people who do say like that, and I just like that they have one less excuse to use, one less defense to use for their bigotry. Of course, they can still keep hopping back to the Bible, and there are Republicans who are, of course, trying to overturn this, but it's such a victory that can't be stated, I guess, that it sets this social precedent now, I think.
Yeah, I guess the conservative backlash against the decision, it's, I mean, I understand that they're trying to justify why they don't have to honor, you know, the decision. I say that in that I understand that they're going through some weird mental gymnastics to try and not do it, but, like, the things I've been hearing about how, like, why is there a Supreme Court, and why do they get to make these decisions, and why it is not their place to make these decisions, and it's frustrating to see, like, people trying to get rid of the importance of a certain branch of government. It's just infuriating to me because
it's interesting, by which I mean it's kind of bull, but it's interesting because, like, these are valid questions to question the structure of the government. And, like, earlier we were saying, like, there are problems with the way the Supreme Court is set up and how it affects our country. And I would like to open a discussion about that and maybe look at changing that on a countrywide scale. But, like, you know that that's not their intention. They didn't just wake up, you know, the day after gay marriage is legalized and say, like, why do we have a Supreme Court? You know that they have ulterior motives, and that's what's so disappointing about it, that they're using this, it's like you said, mental gymnastics. They're using this sort of ideological platform, again, just to further their viewpoint and their bigotry.
Like, because, there's a difference between opening a discussion about how the Supreme Court works and then asking for it to be disbanded.
It's like if your soccer team loses a game and you say, like, well, why do we play for a score? Like, what? Like, it's obvious what you're actually upset about here. It's petulant in a way. That would kind of describe the Republicans in general. But yeah, it's sad because, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot, that these same people wouldn't be decrying the Supreme Court. They would be like, yeah, Supreme Court, go for it. You're so wonderful. You're the best branch we have.
It's a bit infuriating, especially because, especially as you said, that there are discussions to be had about how some branches of government are set up, but then this happens.
I do also want to say that I'm very annoyed at a lot of the corporate response to this, that it was, you know, the trend to change their, like, logo to have a rainbow in it, and a lot of corporations did this. A lot of them still have it up, like, on their Twitter profiles and everything, and I'm really fucking pissed about this. I'm really upset about it. I understand, like, how it started for people to, you know, put that rainbow up as, like, a show of support, but to show support after it's legalized, it begs that question of where were you when these political efforts were going on, and corporations having so much money could have made a huge difference in this decision and maybe accelerated it, that for them to now be like, yeah, we're hip with the gays. It's just like jumping on this bandwagon. And
to be fair, a few of them have been
it's legitimate.
Supportive.
Yes, it's legitimate for a lot of them. Like, BuzzFeed is just on the brain because we were just talking about BuzzFeed has always been in support of gay marriage legalization. They've posted tons of articles about it, in favor of it, etc. So I'm fine with, like, somebody like BuzzFeed doing it. But corporations that haven't had that historical support, that bothers me still. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know what you guys feel about that.
I can understand being, I mean, I can see you being bothered by that. Me personally, I wasn't too bothered by it, But then again, I have a hard time paying attention to a lot of things as well.
I spend way too much time on Twitter, so
I do too, which is really bad. But I mean, I guess it depends on who you follow on Twitter.
Yeah.
I follow like everybody I follow on Twitter is either from San Francisco or from like Massachusetts. So.
And you're probably following a lot of gaming relating blogs.
Yeah.
Not blogs. I don't know what they're called on
people.
Twitter. People. Yeah.
People. Yeah. So I mean, there is that, but like. It's I can understand being sort of like bothered by it because it does seem opportunistic.
Oh, it absolutely is.
To do that. On the other hand, there are some companies or places or organizations that have always kind of been in support of it that are also doing it, which I think is fine. NeoGAF actually changed their logo during all of this, which was. They really went all out with like a new animated logo of their entire thing. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. But
one of my favorite Tumblr posts in all this, and there have been a lot of zingers to be honest, but one of my favorites was not changing my Facebook profile photo to have a rainbow because I don't want people to think I'm straight. And I found that hilarious. I mean, obviously, not just straight people are doing it, but it was really funny. What about you, Cal? Is this bothering you as well?
It's driving me a little bit crazy for a different reason. It isn't the logos, but it's like Facebook has that rainbow-fy your profile picture, and Twitter kind of copied them and did that little heart beside it. And I'm looking through, Facebook, it's easier to look through your Facebook friends, like from school and everything, rather than Twitter, because I have a lot of my school friends, but they're kind of flooded by other gaming things. So when I was on Facebook and looking at all these people who just like rainbowed their profile picture, I'm just like, I'm pretty sure that you said something homophobic like a week ago. What are you doing? And I know a couple of other people have had that problem or issue with it too, is that all of these, it's kind of like, I don't know, a mob mentality sort of thing. It's become a trend now rather than people aren't thinking about what it's supporting. It's just kind of like, oh, all my friends have this rainbow profile picture. I should do it too, so they don't think that I'm like not hip with the times or something.
And it becomes kind of meaningless. Yeah. It bothers me too. It really, really does. Like, not to say that, people can change, of course. If you were previously very homophobic and, you've learned better and you've changed, like, that is something, that it's just a process of becoming less of a problematic person. But, it is still like that thing. Like, 2 days ago, these people were saying homophobic things, and now suddenly they have a rainbow profile picture. It's just, it's bothersome. And it reminds me also of a Tumblr, I think it was April Fool's Day, it had to be, where like they had this button that you could press where suddenly your profile picture had like a top hat on it for the rest of the day. It reminds me of that, and that is worrisome, I guess. I don't know. I mean, of course it's good to see the rainbows and everything and be like, yeah, people support gay marriage, but it is also a bit of a trend that's now bothersome.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from with that, because it's kind of like anything, I guess, nowadays, where things just become sort of a trend for a little bit, and then a few weeks time.
It's like Occupy Wall Street. That actually Occupy Wall Street didn't really start with any kind of agenda or message, but like after a while it just became this like trends that people were showing up and they had no clue what they were doing there, and they didn't understand what was happening. It's just like this frustration I have with political activism, that I love that our generation is very interested in politics and is very active, but it's also frustrating when they don't like get involved in the discourse and learn the history, I guess. And speaking as like a very big feminist and somebody, like, of course it is a learning process to get into feminism, and that like you do need to, of course, have that like core belief of like women are equal to men, but there is a long history that you have to look at and a lot of nuance that you have to look at, and it is a learning process and everything. But it's frustrating to see people that are like just getting started on the track like saying things that are really problematic and like doing things that are problematic and not knowing any better. So I can't be mad at them because they don't know better, but it's frustrating.
No, I understand that. Is that you're not necessarily angry at them or think they're bad people. It's just like, there's more to it than what you're doing.
And like, to extend kind of my comparison to feminism, like, And it's shitty of me to say this, too, because I did the same thing when I was first, like, getting involved in feminism. But, like, I was the editor of the feminist magazine at my community college, and so I was reading a lot of things that people submitted. And an overwhelming number of the submissions were saying either things like, not all feminists are, like, angry, bra-burning, like, crazy people. And another one saying, like, well, I've never been like other women. And both of those are incredibly problematic statements and things that no feminist wants to hear. It's just this, like, symptom of, like, baby feminism, I guess. It's really frustrating. And, of course, my reaction has to be, like, let me explain to you why this is not wrong, but, like, let me explain some of the nuance behind this and why you maybe shouldn't be writing papers about this. But it's also just like, ugh, it's like such a burden to have to deal with that.
There's also something else that I want to bring up if I can find it. But this Facebook group on Twitter, I guess it's a religious thing, whatever. And what they're doing is they, like how Facebook had the rainbow thing, they're doing this thing where they overlap, like, a cross, and it's red, and then the cross is white in the middle, and then it fades onto their profile picture. And I saw one of, like, some of my school friends doing that, and I'm like, I felt that was kind of insulting almost, because then they're like, well, we can be proud of our faith too, you know, we have to be proud of ourselves, of who we are, or, you know, stuff like that. And I was just like, why are you're taking away from something? This is like a totally different issue. You're not being discriminated against. I mean, maybe you are, I don't know, but usually Christians aren't. So I don't.
Yeah, that entire image over last week, that, like, an image, like, overlaying your image was really interesting, because you had, you know, the rainbow stuff as we've been talking about, but then you, on the other side of the thing, you had a bunch of Confederate flags overlaying people's profile stuff, and it was such a weird. That week was a weird week.
We're living in just, like, weird political times. Like, there has been a lot of political change and upheaval in the United States right now, and that's awesome because we need it, but it's happening so much. I feel like in the last year.
Yeah, like last week there was, like, Confederate flags coming down, this same-sex marriage ruling,
the ongoing problems with police brutality, and
there's the other Supreme Court rulings on Obamacare stuff and fair housing. Last week was, like, almost a good news week in terms of was it last week or the week before that now?
It's like both. Like, all these things have been, like, scattered across.
Yeah, it's
inspiring.
It is inspiring to some degree, and then you'd hope that it doesn't just kind of fall off and die.
I can't imagine that it will, because now we are entering our election season, really, that we're seeing our candidates campaign now, and seeing young people get involved. And that's kind of also what I love about this same-sex marriage thing being legalized now, is that I think it sent the message to a lot of young people that if you believe enough in something, if you fight hard enough for it, it can happen, that you can make a difference. And I think that is leading to a lot more young interest in politics. That a big problem with our presidential elections and our local elections is that young people don't vote. The voter turnout rate for young people, and if more young people turned out to vote, we would have much more liberal candidates. That's been proved.
I would actually say it's not so much that young people don't turn out to vote, it's that they only turn out to vote during presidential elections.
Even then, though, the numbers are very low.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of true of most eras, which is a shame.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
What I'm trying to get at is that during, I guess, it's weird to call them off years, but during off years when it's usually either only
off-brand elections,
when it's either House seats or Senate seats up for election and not so much the president, then
unfortunately young people don't care at all, and that leads to things that we have right now where we have, like, an extremely conservative Congress, and that makes it very hard for our liberal president to pass laws.
Yeah, but speaking, this is getting into the realm of just politics in general in the US, but oh dear God, just the candidates in general. There's like 17. There's 17 candidates right now. Actually, no, there's 19. 17 are Republican.
I think that the Republicans are just like throwing a bunch of people out and just saying like, we'll see what sticks. You know, it's very strange.
It's a weird thing because you have people who, to be quite honest, have no chance whatsoever.
No.
And it seems almost to be a move to promote their brand more than actually becoming president.
Donald Trump. But he sabotaged himself, which is the hilarious part about it. We can almost do an entire half podcast episode of just Trump being, just
I guess,
laughing
Trump.
It'll just be us like giggling for like the entire episode and mocking him.
It's such a weird thing for. I mean, because the Democratic Party has, I believe, 3 people now who
Hillary,
are officially
Bernie Sanders, and who's the other one?
Matt's something.
Okay.
That kind of shows you how much sway he has. But
of course, Hillary has been in the news a lot because she's Hillary, and Bernie Sanders has gained a lot of traction with millennials, and that's really great. And that's part of what's so great about this same-sex marriage announcement, that there's this very real feeling among millennials of like, no matter what I do or how I vote, it's not going to make a difference, so why even do it? And now I feel like a lot of people are changing their tune and saying like, I am going to turn out to vote, I am going to get involved in both presidential and local elections, and I am going to fight for a difference because I feel like I can now. It's very empowering to see this success, I think. And I mean, we'll see how that affects the next presidential election in 2016. Because, I mean, everything that, you know, I've been reading about Bernie Sanders, and not to endorse one candidate, because I don't feel that's our place on the podcast, but a lot of the things about Bernie Sanders are very in line with millennial beliefs and are in agreement with that. He is a very independent candidate. You know, he's not like Democratic stock. His campaign has been independently funded quite a bit. It's not like, you know, taking donations from big corporations like Hillary has been doing. And so for millennials to turn out and vote for him, he is a serious contender. He has a really good chance if enough millennials show up and vote for him. And I frankly think that would be fantastic. But it's just that getting the millennials to the voting booth, that's a problem. And I'm a complete hypocrite for saying all of this because I did not vote in 2012. I could have and I didn't. Wait, actually... No, I couldn't.
You couldn't. No, you couldn't. Because
couldn't.
Your birthay's on the 17th. So
I missed it by like 11 days. I didn't vote in the local elections, though. That's what I was upset about myself for.
Yeah. The other candidate was Martin O'Malley.
Okay.
I didn't even get it. I got the M right in his name. But yeah.
Yeah, I believe Jill Stein is also running again, though, for the Green Party, and she was my pick in 2012. So. Yeah,
there's always it's an interesting, I guess, because we are gearing up for election season in the U.S. So it'd be interesting to see how it would be interesting to see, just from a conservative standpoint, to see how they tackle some of these issues, or how they frame some of these issues.
Yeah.
In regards to both the Affordable Healthcare Act and not Obamacare, the same-sex marriage stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting for Hillary too, actually, though, because one of her big campaign points was getting gay marriage legalized, and now that she doesn't have that, I'm concerned about what she's going to replace it with. I do think that she will probably go for another gay or trans rights issue, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious on the conservative side, though, that if they'll either begrudgingly acknowledge it, either that, or if they'll double down on trying to change it.
It would be political suicide to do that, though. But I mean, that I completely expect that of the Republicans. So
yeah, I'm because to be quite honest, I'm expecting a few of the Republican candidates I expect will be kind of already out of it by the time debates happen. Mm-hmm. Just because the debates will accommodate 10 people, and there are more than 10 people trying to get the Republican nomination. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is fantastic news, and it's kind of nice to be able to take a break from gaming and talk about it, because it is a really big deal to people our age. And you know, there's not much we can say about it besides endorsing, what great news this is, and talking about, I guess, like where we are going in light of it, which I think we have.
Yeah.
So if you guys have anything else to bring up, go ahead. But if not, I'll move us along.
Move us along.
Okay. Yep. So, now we can move along to user-submitted questions. To submit a question to the KH-Vids Podcast, all you have to do is fill out the form linked with every episode of the podcast, or send an email to podcast@KH-Vids.Net. The questions can be directed towards a host in particular, or the group in general. So the first question comes from Nobody's Light, or Andrew, and he asks, "Hey guys, I love what you do with the podcast. It's great. Thank you. So my question is, where do you get the intro outro music? I'd love to know, especially after hearing your episode on Pokemon." I'll field this question just because I'm the one that takes care of that. The usual intro outro music we have is simple and clean MIDI that I brought into a program called GXSCC and sequenced it with their custom sound font, and then outported that to a wave, and I just put it at the bookends of every episode. But for really specific episodes, like when we did the Pokemon episode, we did the Final Fantasy X episode, like this, there have been a lot. They're not coming to mind right now. For the one that we did about the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, I used Rage Awakens. So I just find MIDIs and sequence them. As I've learned more about MIDI sequencing and like sound fonts and everything, I don't use GXSCC that much anymore. I usually use Foobar 2000 and select the sound font that I want. So like you can find a sound font for like Legend of Zelda and take a Kingdom Hearts MIDI and play it using the Legend of Zelda sound font. And it's really, really neat. I mean, I know this probably doesn't make sense to anyone. It's probably just making everybody more confused, but It is really cool. And it takes a lot of playing around. I've spent like hours just sitting there like playing with MIDIs and like not editing the podcast.
MIDIs are great.
It is, and it's like addicting. It's really bad.
Especially because, as you said, if you can just change the sound font, you can make the same song sound different.
Yeah.
Depending on whatever thing. And by the way, I love how you say MIDI.
Is that not how you're supposed to say it?
No. It is, but how you stress certain letters in that word, it's appealing to listen to. Okay. Just how you say it.
Well, I hope my MIDIs are appealing to listen to. And if we have a specific episode where I have specific intro outro music for it and it goes up like hours later than it usually would, I can guarantee to you that it's just because I was playing with MIDIs. Sometimes I do opt to not use a MIDI. Like, I think for the Last of Us podcast, I just used, like, the straight soundtrack because the Last of Us soundtrack is so good, and because I did find a MIDI, I believe, for the Last of Us theme, but I couldn't get it to sound right. But I love chiptune, and so, like, playing with MIDIs, I feel like that's, like, a uniting element across, even though I do have, like, the Final Fantasy X music going in one of them, it's still chiptune, so it's kind of, like, KH-Vids Podcast. So,
I want to listen to that. I want to listen to the main theme of The Last of Us now.
Yeah, but if you're ever curious about like where I found the MIDIs, I really should like credit them, I guess. Some of them are just like direct rips from the game disc. Like we have a lot on KH-Vids actually available for download, and I use those when I'm having different Kingdom Hearts themes being played. So if you're ever curious to have like the full version of something, just ask me because I probably have it. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with MIDIs. Yeah, so that answers that question. Let me close that. And next one is from Misty is a loser, Plums is a winner. So I think we know who this is from and how untrue that statement is. But Plums asks, a wizard pops out of your toaster. They give you the choice to receive super speed, but at the cost of slipping on a banana peel once a day for the rest of your life. They add in that the appearance of this banana peel is random. It could be on a stair railing, in the shower, or even on your butt before sliding out of bed. Do you take the super speed, or is the banana threat too much?
Too much.
Really?
Because what if you step on the banana when you're going super fast, and then just mayhem and possibly death occur? And I'm not that huge of a fan of super speed. So
speaking as somebody who has actually slipped on a banana peel before in real life, it's not. Are you a
cartoon?
It's not that bad. Like, I guess if you're going super speed, it's probably a lot worse. But if you just like step on it, you just kind of like slide a little bit, and you can usually recover. But, I mean, it's something to think about. I don't really know what I would use super speed for. Like, the only thing that's coming to mind is, like, going to Disney World really quickly. But But yeah, like, so I don't really need super speed. If it was something like pausing time, you know, like time control, then I'd be like, hell yeah, give me all the banana peels you want. But
what would you do with pause time?
That's just always the thing that I've wanted, but it's also for both reasons. Just like, if I could pause time, like, so I could sleep a little more, or like take a shower when I feel really gross, like that kind of thing.
So would this pause time only affect a certain area around you?
Well, we've had this conversation
to
before, and I think honestly we're going to open it again when we have our Life is Strange spoiler cast. But I always call back to the movie Clock Stoppers, if anybody watched that as a child in like 2002.
Wow. That's a pull.
So I want Clock Stoppers, except without the negative side effects of like aging in the paused time. That's my like ideal situation.
That's okay. I know, because you were talking about taking a shower, like, wouldn't the water be stopped and then no shower for you?
Oh, that's true.
Unless
sleeping is the big one, though.
Sleeping is fine. Unless you like, if you decided to take a bath instead of a shower, and then you just have warm water the entire time. I
don't like baths, though.
I know, but I mean, I'm just saying.
Sitting in your own filth, like, I don't.
Yeah, but if time stopped, then you wouldn't be doing that, because nothing would be. You'd just be sitting in warm water or hot water.
Okay, I don't know enough about time travel to get into this. How about you, Cal? What's your feeling about the banana peel issue?
I don't know, man. Like this, I don't want to say that I zoned out, but I listened to this question and I'm like, Plums, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? Because I didn't quite, I don't know. It didn't like it. I stayed up very late last night, and I am up very early.
Celebrating 4th of July in Canada.
Yeah, totes. But I don't know. I think I do what you said, Misty, because I don't like the banana peel thing. I'm accident prone, so anything bad will just happen to me. So I'm gonna try to avoid that as much as possible.
Okay, and the last question, it's directed towards me, but I think you guys could also answer it if you've watched Adventure Time at all. It's from Quilligan, and he asks, if you had to take a blind guess, where in the modern-day world would you say the land of Ooh would be located? If that's too large to guess, where might Finn and Jake's / Marceline's treehouse be? I mean, I think that the land of Ooh is pretty clearly, like, nuclear Earth in the future.
Yeah. But where on Earth would it be, though? I think that's the question.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, the geographic layout of the land of Ooh.
I mean, also, because how like, if we're going to assume however far into the future this is, there could be just, like, certain, like, I guess landmarks that are just completely, like,
changed.
And
not just that, but the land of Ooh has also undergone 1,000 years of like nuclear.
Yeah.
I don't nuclear whatever. Like there was a nuclear war 1,000 years ago, and that definitely changes the landscape quite a bit. So I
guess you can. I'm trying to think of one of the episodes when it was Marceline and Simon.
And Simon and Marcy.
I'm trying to think. Because obviously with that episode that you sort of saw saw like cities and stuff like that, so I'm trying to think if that looked like anything, like if it was like or if it was just like a generic city number one.
I think it was pretty generic. I don't remember anything, but I feel like there was an episode where they had like some kind of landmark, like some like destroyed in the background, and like didn't note it at all, but just like had it there, which is the weird thing about Adventure. If you've never watched Adventure Time, this show is really fucking strange and kind of unsettling a lot of the time in a lot of different ways, but one of them just being that it's in this like nuclear future, like post-apocalyptic, but like that's also what's so amazing about it.
It's
that
post-apocalyptic.
When I say like post-apocalyptic, you're thinking like Walking Dead, you know, like that kind of thing, but it's post-apocalyptic, but it's also just a show about a boy and his dog having, like, cute little adventures. And it's so fucking weird, and I love it.
Yeah, that's... I've been finding that's kind of true of a lot of Cartoon Network stuff from like, forever. Like, Courage the Cowardly Dog is a really fucking weird cartoon. It is really weird, and I think there are more unsettling bits in Courage than there ever is in, like, anything in Adventure Time. Like, there are some stuff in...
Courage goes for, like, very unsettling imagery. At least that's what I remember as a kid. I couldn't watch it as a kid because I was afraid of it. But Adventure Time, especially in this last season, has been dealing with a lot of philosophical questions. They basically had an entire episode about Nietzsche called Astral Plane, and it was really, really, really... Like, it fucks you up. It fucks you up.
There's unsettling imagery in Courage, but there are a few episodes where just the entire, like, storyline of that particular episode is kind of really out there. Like, the one that's really coming to mind right now is this dude, he's a barber, and he just likes cutting hair with the creepiest smile on his face the entire time. But his entire storyline is that he's a barber that cuts hair and just loves cutting hair and will cut hair off of anything and everybody, even if they don't want it. He'll just tie them to a chair and start shaving their hair off, and it's just, oh dear God, it's having this weird singing tune go on in the background. It's
But see, Adventure Time has episodes like that too all the time.
Yeah, I know.
It's like unsettling that this is what's going on with children's cartoons, I guess.
I mean, and Courage, I mean, as I said, it just seems to be something with Cartoon Network, because Courage is from, like, the early 2000s, late 90s, I think. And it's like, I mean, I really like Courage the Cowardly Dog, but I remember as a kid being kind of really frightened by certain episodes. Like, even just, I'm just thinking of, like, the main, I guess, the recurring villains that occur in that thing, and all of them are just creepy. Like,
in Adventure Time, the Lich is terrifying.
Yeah,
the Lich is really scary.
The Lich is terrifying in the sense that it isn't so much creepy as it is, as you said, terrifying. Yeah. Like, but there's stuff in, like, Courage that is just, they aren't terrifying, but it's like, you're really unsettled by just looking at this thing and just how they act, and just, it's weird.
Well, there's also Lemon Grab in Adventure Time, and the Lemon Hope episodes are really freaky. And Adventure Time does really concern itself with, like, political questions and moral questions. Like, my favorite character of Adventure Time is PB. Oh, well, Marceline might be my favorite, but one of the two. PB is great. PB is this, like, problematic leader who... It's really easy to hate PB. A lot of people hate PB because she does some really fucked up stuff. And yet, it's this whole question of, like, she's doing it for her kingdom, the Candy Kingdom, and does that make her a bad person? And I want to say no. I'm, like, very inclined to defend PB, and I'm a little unsettled by how much I'm inclined to defend PB. And in this last season, like, not to give any huge spoilers, but she has had to deal with this huge question of, have I gone too far, and what kind of person do I want to be, and kind of backing down from that. The two episodes being, like, The Cooler and Pajama Wars, where they really dealt with that. And it goes hard. It goes really hard. And I love Adventure Time. We kind of got off on a tangent.
It is a really great show.
It is. It's phenomenal.
I'm happy it exists.
And with all of this, they still can't have two gay characters get together. And I feel okay about bringing it up now because we talked about same-sex marriage on the episode. PB and Marceline are so gay for each other. Especially, like, again, not to give any spoilers, but there was a comic book series that just finished up called Marceline Gone Adrift, in which PB, has to send Marceline into space for complicated reasons. And so Marceline gets trapped there, and PB sets off to rescue her, and it ended very gay. And they need to do it. I need them to make out with each other.
You need your fantasy fulfilled, right?
I do. I really do. Like, on screen on Cartoon Network.
You need to see it animated.
It would be so big. It would be big. Speaking as a bisexual person, to see PB and Marceline get together, like, when I was a child, that would have saved me a lot of years of confusion and frustration. Yeah, okay. So that's our user submit questions. I don't know how many of them we actually answered, but... for community news and projects, the only thing that's coming to mind is the user awards. We plugged them last episode, but I'm going to do it again because I believe nominations are still open. You can check out the thread on our website for more information because it is kind of specific, but the user awards are our yearly event where we basically just, like, give out superlatives, like hottest member, like nicest member, that kind of thing. So you can nominate the people that you feel fit in the categories. You send your nominations to different people. Again, check the thread. And then after nominations end, we'll vote, and it's just a lot of fun. So please do get involved in the user awards. There are some podcast nominations now on the user awards for the first time ever. So there's things like best podcast guest, and I think like best question submitter, something like that. I don't know exactly, but yay for podcasts. So if you listen to the podcast and you want to nominate, even if you're like a new member, just join up and nominate for the podcast if there was a guest that you really dug. And I'm inclined to say that whoever gets nominated for best podcast guest, we will get them back on the podcast very quickly.
So last year Jane had the official KHV Minecraft server, but then Jane left and it's kind of been deadish ever since. So what I did was I actually, I have the server all set up and everything, and a couple people have already been playing on it, so you can find the thread for it in the playground, and if any of you are Minecraft people and want to join us, we have a good amount of people, and everything's all done and pretty, so I've been working on that for a while. So yes, please come play with us.
Play Minecraft with us. I feel inclined to add the Minecraft in there because play with us just doesn't sound right to me.
Play with us.
Anything else? No. Okay, so there are a lot of ways for you to get involved with the KH-Vids podcast. Like I said, you can submit a question to the KH-Vids podcast by filling out the form linked with every episode of the podcast, or send an email to podcast@KH-Vids.Net. You can submit to be a guest on the KH-Vids podcast by filling out the form linked with every episode of the podcast. All you need is a Skype account, a microphone, and headphones, and we would love to have you. You can submit a topic to the KH-Vids podcast by filling out the sticky in the podcast section. Tell us what you want to hear us talk about. Give us a suggestion for a spoiler cast, anything like that. And then, of course, you can always just leave a comment on the podcast episode with your thoughts on the episode, what you think about same-sex marriage ruling, what the status of same-sex marriage ruling is in your country, and to answer our user-submitted questions. So, that about concludes episode number 97 of the KH-Vids podcast. Thank you all for listening, and have a very, very gay day.